Microsoft Teams this morning. Hi, Mike Sweeney. And Mike Barnett will just get going, and then we'll post it, and we'll share it with those who couldn't make it today. So, and we'll try to make it a little bit, not a little bit quicker this time. Scott, could you take care of admissions?
Yeah, I just let Case write in.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
so,
I'm late.
It's okay, no problem at all. So this is our meeting for change management, and I will go through some slides just to kind of present the status, where we are on the people analytics, discuss how to use that information for change management, and then get a little bit into how we're going to approach analytics for change management and the change readiness assessment and so forth. Just to check, people can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this was a slide that we discussed, a few weeks ago, where there are all these things that impact change management, the people, the processes, the technology, and then on the left side is all the workforce and organizational culture issues. And it all has kind of feedback loops and among these different components. So what I'm going to start with, just to give you a taste of how we're dealing with assessment on the workforce and organization, which we've kind of merged into a single thing, how we're dealing with the assessment there, to give us a taste of the how we're going to also apply the same approach to processes, technology, and even to change management. It'll all be more clear as we proceed. So our step one was to finalize, this is on the people side, to finalize the categories, which is, we established 7 categories, from organizational values, performance, communication and feedback, reward, recognition, employee engagement, accountability, teamwork. So the first thing was to finalize these questions. Then to finalize the assessment tool that produces data and shows the results. That's what I'm going to show you today, just as an example. And then also do some additional analysis on the once you get the report out. So that was our scope for the workforce and organizational team for this year. And I'm going to now move this.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that slide real quick? Cello, I'm sorry.
And this has been posted to the folder on OneDrive, Case Drive.
Yeah, like you said last time, for all of a sudden I can't get into it again. So.
Oh, you cannot? Okay, I'll really?
Yeah. It same day it worked, and then the next time I went in, it didn't work. So.
Well, if you can connect you and your IT person and me, and I'll do some kind of Croatian method for trying to get things done. How's that?
Will do. Yep, that's good. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something. Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show what this survey tool looks like in a second. So let me just move this, and I'll show you what the results look. Let me know when you see a different kind of screen.
It's there.
Okay, and just one more thing. Hang on just a second. So this, what we started with was a Microsoft form to ask questions. So basically it was a form like this, This is form for tier 2. What I'm showing you is tier 1, but it had not a ratings, but had different types of questions that have been determined for as a result of work for about a year by the core team on the workforce and organizational culture. So I could pull up that form. I didn't realize that I pulled up the tier 2 form. But in any case, so that resulted in data, and then that data we put into Power BI. So we are staying within the Microsoft ecosystem. And this is, I simulated responses, which means I provided the responses rather than, people out there, just to show and to test what this thing would look like. So we have these 7 categories, and they're shown here, and you will see that they're different color. And these colors indicate the overall level of maturity between 1 and 5. So 1 is deep red, and 1 is, and 5 is kind of deep green, and there's stuff in between. And you can see the maturity levels indicated here with these numbers. So this would be for 2.9 for organizational strategy and performance, organizational values, and stuff like that. So this is just a summary dashboard, but these pages at the bottom show the detail on each question, each of the questions. So that so if we look at this organizational strategy and performance, for example, we can look into the detail here, and we can see how people responded to questions. And these are the questions, question 1, question 2, 3, and they were the questions for this category. And you can see how people responded. So you can see the detail this way. You can see the same for organizational values. You can see for responsibility, reward, recognition, and there's always a question and the result for communication, for employee engagement, and teamwork and collaboration. So you can really get into the detail. So this is one way to get into the detail, to look at what each question, what the responses were. But you can also look at different dimensions of these answers, because I included a couple of demographic kind of questions. So you could, for example, say, well, how did the staff in the field vote? And you can see that the results may be different. Or you could say, how did executive management see the picture? And it could be different. Or how did managers see? Or, office staff. So you can really dig in, do a deep dive, and see what is behind these dashboards. And you can see also breakdown for each one of these categories in terms of what was the maturity level for specific questions. So you could then get the overall and then the specific. And for each one of these, you can also do the same slicing here and say, well, what was it like in engineering? Was it a different result? How about in finance? How about in information technology? And then you could combine that. You'd say information technology and, a manager, and you will see how they perceive the situation. So that is not a real data. This is the data that I've generated, and I provided the responses. So it is not, and I wanted to have a range of answers so you could see, different colors, and you can see different slices for the data. So I'm going to stop now and see if I can get some reaction if people, because it can be a bit, much to take in when you first see it. So I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions. Kaysar, you must have a question.
No, this actually looks really good. I really like it.
Mike Sweeney? Oh, Mike Sweeney, you're muted.
Kjell, did you say you made the data up, or is this real?
No, this is not real. I had to I had to generate a number of responses in order to test,
Okay, yeah.
the tool. So the data is not real, but to get the data, it would be the whole process is very easy because we have the form in place. So all you would basically need to do is send out the form, and people would fill out the form. You would collect the result. I'll show exactly how it's done technically for anybody who's interested. And then you would pull that file, point Power BI to the file with the results, and it would produce a report like this.
Well, the dashboard looks great. If you're looking for feedback, the only thing I would add is just putting somewhere on there what for me it's magenta versus beige. What does that mean? But
yeah. And if you look at each individual, I have the you see here the legend, neutral. So
yeah, I see it. Yeah, okay.
So the legend is here. So I do need to put that legend include a legend like this on the main dashboard as well. That's a good point.
Sure, thanks.
Cello, can you go back to the dashboard?
Yeah.
So the reward and recognition has nothing. Does it mean that you didn't respond? Like, I don't see any graph at the top.
Reward and recognition. Okay, yeah, because there's only one question, question 9. So all of these others have more than one question. So here you can see which question, and person sending this out would know. You could say, okay, well, they didn't answer, and then you can go to that and see the detail. So if you go like here, organizational values, you'll see what the list of questions are. There are 4, 5, and 6, right? But when it comes to which one was that? Engagement? No, which one was that?
Employee engagement.
Teamwork and collaboration.
Oh, teamwork and collaboration. Well, there was one. Let me see. I got to get back. Reward and recognition.
Oh, reward and recognition.
It's only one question.
Okay.
So I couldn't make like I didn't want to put just this with one bar. You know what I mean?
Well, what you could do is just put up there just says question 9.
Well, yeah, I wrote it here. It's probably not big enough to,
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is a little small, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I can, but that's the only reason is because there was only a single question. But if the question was added, then it would make sense to put it up like this. And this is my first cut at it, and but it gives you a sense of that we just had a set of simple questions. And for example, the questions on demographics, which is question D1 and D2, where people said, well, I'm a field staff, I work in operations or whatever. These have not been vetted with the core team for workforce. So if that is changed, it's a piece of cake to just have a different categories for demographics. I didn't include like the size of your utility and stuff like that because this will be done within one utility and they already know that information.
Cello, one thing worth pointing out is that it's intended that this be applied to a particular process or function. It's not an organization-wide survey. It's not intended to be used that way, at least initially. And also, if you look at the demographics, the business unit and the role there, if it was a larger group that's taking the survey, that would be appropriate to use. If it's a small group, then you could actually see, you could tell, like if there's one executive management person, one manager, you could kind of see what their individual scores are. And the intent, at least to start with, is to make it confidential or not attribute the answers to individuals. So it kind of depends on how that would be used.
And there are a couple of different ways to apply this. One would be anonymous, where you try to hide how people voted. and the other is confidential. So for example, at Kansas City, they do it in a confidential way, which means nobody knows the answers to these questions except for one person who's doing the analysis. Or it could be, I don't have personally a preference, and all this can be shaped, and I'm showing it as an example of information that could be used by the change management team, because I think this kind of analysis would be used. But I'll also put it in context with the similar types of analysis that, but I thought it was just the first one that that we built. So it's an example of what the other ones could look like. Any other comments, Ashley or Roxy?
I have a question. Is this some special application or form that you're using to create the survey, or is it just say survey from somewhere else? Where did you get the information? I guess I could say.
Okay, so the instrument for the survey is just Microsoft Forms. So it is very common application that comes as part of Office 365. So if your organization has Microsoft Office 365, you already have the Microsoft Form application. I will show you a little bit more detail. Give me just 1 second. I will put this away and I'll show you. So this is, I'm sorry, I didn't do a complete job moving this over. So this is how it went. So to show the level of detail, we still have to kind of finalize, make sure that people are still okay with these questions. So this is how it works. We would create survey in Microsoft Forms. It would be stored in SharePoint, in a SharePoint folder. Then you would, or this is what we've done. Then we would send out the survey via email and collect the responses. So you would just send somebody a link to this form. They would fill out the form, and the results of their responses would be again saved in the same SharePoint file. Then what I did is I ran the Power BI, also Microsoft product, to ingest the data because it saves results in Excel format. So then I ran Power BI and pointed it to that file, to the results file on SharePoint, and generated the report. And then what we did right now is I created within Power BI, I created a report that shows all the data. So all this is part of Microsoft Office 365 that, it seems like a lot of organizations have Microsoft shops, and they would have all this software. So I was trying to avoid people having to subscribe or purchase any additional, software, just for the project. Does that answer your question, Roxy?
Yes, it did. Thanks for the level of detail.
Okay. So so this is what we've done on Workforce, all of these steps, and you've seen them, and we can tweak it and stuff. Now we're gonna do tier 2 questions, and Keisra will need to look into tier 2 questions. I already, as you can see, started building up the forms and the things like that, and I had some a suggestion. Scott and I talked about it, that we depart from the negative and we turned everything one of those and said what would be nice and have positive statements, so we can catch up on that. So instead of making people who are responding part of the solution rather than just dwelling on the problems, and then they say, well, you tell us what the problem is and then we're going to figure out what the solution is. So we can talk about it offline if you'd like. So this was so this is the program that we have laid out for change management. And these blue boxes are sort of primarily group effort and collaboration. And then orange boxes are the ones that we were hoping that people would do within their utilities. So what we have planned for this year is to identify available off-the-shelf change management methods. And Ramona has given us a presentation a couple of weeks ago about what we've done there, and we've collected some, we've looked at these different off-the-shelf options. And one thing that we haven't done yet quite is for people to have a chance to share their experience and maybe share some case studies that they have done. This is what we had planned for this year, and we're on track to achieve that. The green stuff is what we've actually done. But then we would look at, you know, early next year, looking at options for methodology, consider how to integrate our workforce and organizational culture, prepare plans and so forth, and then guidelines. So one of the reasons why there may be not as many artifacts that have been shared is this is the result of the survey from our meeting on change management in August, when a number of people, and it seemed that the level of application of change management as reported by the utility partners is really not at a high, this is on a scale from 1 to 5, we're like an average, you know, 2.8. I mean 1.8. So that may reflect the fact that not many artifacts have been shared. So what would be the next step for us on specifically for change readiness, for change management, is to look into a similar type of assessment, but apply it to capabilities and to actually implement change, and how is an organization ready. So we would, on what's shown on the left, develop the question for this kind of assessment, and then we could easily adopt as far as technically, you know, use the forms and the Power BI and all that other stuff. So in the long run, we would then, if you were dealing with change management and implementation, you would have input from analysis on from the workforce that we just said. We're working also on the process analysis tools, similar, just a few questions, and on the technology part, so that the person or team dealing with implementation would have the data from its own organization capabilities for change, the workforce and organizational culture survey, if appropriate, how complex is the tool, and then technology analysis. So in more detail, we would start with the process and go through these 3 steps that we've done for so many processes already on this project, and answer the questions like how complex is the process, who is involved, what are the activities and workflows, decisions that need to be, and so forth. And once we have the process down, we would also look at technology and say, have the same, figure out, are we collecting the data we need? Are we managing the data properly? What are our analytics tools? How do we support decision-making or automation? And then on change management, we would, on people side, I just showed you, you know, what are the organizational values, trust, and all that other stuff. So once so the last piece, piece number 4, is from change readiness, and that is how does the reorganization react to change? What are the capabilities for change, and so forth. So that's kind of, let me go back a couple of slides. I was still kind of working on this stuff this morning, so I want to stop and see if there are comments or questions. Mike Sweeney, I can always count on you to say something.
I I don't have any comments at this point, Cello. I'm trying to follow along like everybody. It's
Okay,
it makes sense.
okay. I think we may have lost Kesra somehow.
Yeah, Kesra had to leave. She had to
Oh.
jump off.
Okay. So, opening it up for questions and comments, and I realize we have a little bit of a light turnout today, but does this have any fatal flaws that you see, or anything that is it understandable and stuff like that?
I have a question for you, Cello. I mean, what you've demonstrated here is that there's an assessment piece that really is for workforce and organizational culture, technology, process, and change itself. And so that in a holistic sense, you can build that around the work process. You know, is it possible that not everybody is going to do all of that, and that they're going to focus on one thing or another, but still, work towards improvements?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that it provides a set of tools that could be used in different, and some organization may say, you know what, we first want to look at our organization as a whole and just do the same survey for everybody in the workforce and organizational culture, where they could, on the people side, they could do that. I think that when it comes to improving processes, it's a little bit more required that there's a sequence that you first start by understanding how your process works today. So if the objective is to just get a general sense how people feel about this organization, then just using that one survey will answer the question. But it may not be sufficient to say, how do you fix procurement, or how do you make CIP planning run better and stuff like that. For that, we would start with the process. And how deep people go is like their choice, and they could adjust these things. The benefit of everybody using the same questions is that we could eventually have comparisons across different utilities, which they couldn't do if they change the question, or if they make significant adjustments to the method.
Or let's say, Cello, that in changing a certain process, you say, let's not deal with technology now. You could still deal with the other pieces and not technology. You could save that to later, or
sure.
Because to do all of it could take a long time, and you may be in the middle of doing something right now. And so, what are the assessments that are appropriate? And hopefully, this team is going to define the change process, and along with assessing, are you ready to do that change?
Yeah. So that's kind of what we had today, and we were then we were planning to have about half the time on the, to present this material, and then I see Mike has his hand up, and then the other half to just having a discussion and figure out, if people have any questions. Mike.
Real quick question, Cello, and you probably put it on the screen. I may have missed it or talked about it. How many tiers are you thinking about?
In terms of people in organization, we would have 2. The others may just have 1.
Okay.
And the original plan was that we would have like questions, and then if they answered disagree, or that, then you would go to the
subset. Yeah.
Yeah, the subset. But
okay.
that ended up being technically a little bit difficult to implement.
Okay.
And it also made the survey really kind of heavy to do.
Right.
And because when we talked with the workforce and organizational team originally, their preference was to have 10 questions. They said, we would like to have a survey of 10 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up with 18 questions that were on tier 1. And then we had 5 or 10 sub questions, depending on answers, and it turned it into 200. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or 100 or something. I mean, it just exploded.
Right.
So what we decided was to split the two, to go tier 1, which is already fairly detailed, and it showed, you know, considerable ability to dig into the details and stuff like that again. And if necessary, if, for example, everything was green and once 2 were red, you could maybe follow up with tier 2 questions on those alone.
Yeah.
Because it's been a tension between the desire to collect the data that could allow you to kind of, you know, chart the path forward, and having people, you know, having something that's very heavy, and it started to get really heavy with so many levels, you know.
Right. Okay.
But that said, Mike, and thinking of technology in your case, for example, is what tier 1 does is assess where you're at. It doesn't say, where are you going? What are you going to do about it? And
Right.
what tier 2 does is begin to address what are the kinds of you know, areas to be improved based on the data from the assessment. So
Right.
it's still evolving, but it's a lot of detail to absorb. But in theory, tier 2 wouldn't happen at the same time as the tier 1 questions, but it could be a second phase of the process to look at tier 2 and say, and be getting the input from the stakeholders on what kind of improvements are most needed.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? Phil, I see that Marco had to jump off. Do you have a sense that this is does this make sense to you?
Yes, this does make sense to me, but I'm following along and, you know, taking it in. I'm going to look at or play the recording with Marco to see whether or not he has any questions or what his thoughts are.
Yeah, and I think the easiest way to kind of, it is a lot to take in. The easiest thing is to actually try to use it, you know, on a selected, you know, not to try to send it to everybody, but send it to a few people internally and say, do you think this is you know, just kind of try to test drive it a little bit and work with it a little bit and spend a bit of time with it, because at first it's kind of, you know, looks big and complicated or whatever.
Right. And the recording will be available later today?
Yes, the recording will be available later today. I will send a note to everybody. I'll post it. It takes just a little bit of time to process, but I'll put it both in the folder and on YouTube.
All right. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, thanks.
I see that Ashley's on the phone and, you know, wondering if she has any comments.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is a phenomenal amount of work. Thank you, Cello. I've come from the lean assessment side in the past, where we've done lean assessments and of similar nature and did not have the dashboard or the tools to summarize that data. So thank you for getting us into the 21st century. That's fantastic. And it's a credible amount of work to be able to get to this point. And then going from there with tier 2, I think is great. And that was my one question, and that was answered. So that's great. I guess one thing, and I might have missed it, just dealing with some morning activities this morning, but on the dashboard and the maturity side, is there a legend around what those maturity colors are?
It's a great question, and Mike Sweeney, you know, you see, I have it on the individual points. You see the legend here? Mm-hmm. I haven't figured out yet how to elegantly put that here, and the legend has to be there. And I just haven't figured out yet what's the best way to do it. But it's a good point. I will add it. I'm not going to try to add it now while we're on the call.
No, yes, no, please.
He could do it though. He could do it, Ashley.
I'm sure. Yes, exactly. No pressure though, Till. No pressure. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, fantastic work. I'm really excited to see this and be able to use it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so,
thank
so
you. Go
Ashley, I think if you were to actually take the work of one of the other teams at Metro Vancouver, for example, and you wanted to take a certain process and pilot it and work with that person who might be on another team actually, and apply the workforce, or when we get to it, the change management, that would be fantastic. And it's really good to have you on the team here.
Yeah. And so I'm also going to be looking for feedback. For example, these demographic questions, are they okay? Should we change them? You know, and I'll definitely put in the legend on here, and to make it more understandable.
Just a quick humorous note, I couldn't help seeing Ashley has a garage door, so it's like great minds live alike.
I'm on the freebie version of MS Teams, so I can't even pretend where I am right now when I turn on my video. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm down in the garage in my husband's workshop right now. Pretty fun. Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Scott. Yes, I think testing it out with a group. We also, in our liquid waste, I'm in part of the liquid waste department, so our sewer group, and our general manager is quite a big fan of the employee engagement surveys, and the result recently didn't come back so well. And so this is maybe really a subset of that we could look at piloting and rolling out. And then how does that spread across our organization?
You're going to be interested as we progress to the tier 2, Ashley, because what we do is we take the stakeholders that are participating and who do the survey, or whoever you want to include, and turn it in. It was kind of subtle what Chella was saying, but before we'd been saying what's wrong that produced that low score. Now we're trying to turn it into positive statements. What would you do to address that low score? And there are some standard types of responses and a dashboard that would be created for that as well. So it kind of gets it into almost the to be situation of what's desired as you develop your process for change.
Exactly. And that future state was that current state and future state.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Okay. Well, that was all we had planned for today, and very much appreciate everybody showing up in this holiday season when our attendance has been quite a bit lower. But I'll post a video, and if you have any comments and thoughts, just please let us know, and we'll take it all into account. Let me just find the recording button.